Am I wrong because I'm a better stay-at-home parent than my wife? My wife is essentially a stay-at-home mom, only working a few days a month. I have been home for 2 months with a back injury requiring surgery. Since I have been home, I have kept up with all the laundry, had the house cleaned every day, given each room a complete deep cleaning including shampooing the carpets and upholstered furniture, managed the kids' complex schedule, cleaned the basement, except for a few heavy things I'm not allowed to lift, dinner made almost every night and more. I overheard my wife talking to her friend about how much I've been doing, and at first it seems like she was bragging. Then it turned bitter, telling her friend that she's mad that I make it look easy and that she hoped I would struggle to prove to me how hard her job is. For the record, I've always done about 25% of the housework and child care because I also have a full-time job, and she has been working full-time hours now and hasn't had to do anything other than a couple of errands. When I confronted her, she started to dismiss it, then got mad at me for doing such a good job. She said I basically stole her contribution to the family. I will be going back to work in 1 month and things will return to normal. So did I do something wrong? I definitely want a woman's and stay-at-home parents' point of view. Edit, I'm trying to keep up and answer all comments. We are both back to school for our doctorates. I'm farther along than she is by 1 year at least. I never tried bragging or comparing myself to her in any way and never gave it a second thought until I overheard her. No, I won't marry you. My sister keeps on calling my wife spoiled because I let her be a housewife, but she got very pissed and humiliated when I pointed out why she doesn't get the same treatment from her husband. I am married to the love of my life, Michelle, and have been with her for 13 years, married for 11. My wife is chronically ill, and as soon as it was financially feasible, I suggested she quit her job and stay at home. Since then, I've become quite successful in my career, and I've encouraged her to get out of the house to pursue the hobbies we didn't have money for and that she didn't have time or energy for. We are incredibly happy with the direction our life is going, and Michelle's mental and physical health has never been better. We split the household chores according to how Michelle is feeling. On her good days, she'll usually do just about everything that needs to be done before I'm even home, but on those occasions when her illness is acting up, a lot of it falls on me. I honestly do not mind. There isn't a whole lot for us to do on a day-to-day basis besides laundry, dishes, cooking, and tending to the dogs. A housekeeper comes once a week and does most of the major stuff. I enjoy cooking and typically only have maybe an hour's worth of stuff on the days she can't do anything. I also just generally like to spoil her. I bring her home gifts and trinkets. I encourage and financially support her hobbies. I take her on 2 weekly dates and vacations. I like seeing her happy. My sister, Karen, cannot wrap her head around this concept. Her husband, Bill, works in the same industry as me, making similar money. However, Bill does not treat Karen as I treat Michelle. Bill won't let Karen be a stay-at-home wife. She frequently mentions how he rarely takes her on dates or brings her home flowers or gifts, how he isn't generous with his money, and how it should be their money. Despite this, she has always criticized my wife for being spoiled. Anytime I mention my wife and what she happens to be up to that day, in a cooking class, golfing, painting, my sister gets huffy and comments about how lucky my wife must consider herself and how surprised she is that my wife stays busy. If I mention ever having to do a single bit of housework, Karen talks about how selfish Michelle is for not doing her part and how cooking breakfast was the least my wife could do. If I tell my mother about the emerald earrings I bought Michelle, the spa day I sent her on, or the new recipe I was making for her tomorrow, Karen would make comments about how our relationship isn't equal and that I'm being taken advantage of. Recently, at a family dinner that neither Bill nor my wife were attending, I casually mentioned to my mom how, after dinner, I needed to run a load of laundry so I'd have clean pants for work the next day. My wife was having a bad flare-up and had been pretty much confined to the couch. My sister scoffed and loudly said, "If she weren't so spoiled, you wouldn't be coming home to a bunch of chores." I responded with, "My wife isn't spoiled, your husband just doesn't like you." I asked her why she was forced to work if her husband made as much as I did. She was pissed, my parents were irritated, and I was asked to leave the dinner. My sister has sent me texts calling me names, and my mother has reached out, saying that was insensitive and asking me to apologize, but I think she deserves Tifu by making my buddy realize his daughter is probably not his. I don't even know how to start. But here it goes. Me and my buddy are both in our mid-20s and work as engineers for the same company, and we've known each other since high school, and Hess pretty much my best friend. We played a couple of rounds of CS tonight and we're talking via Discord. His GF works as a nurse at the night shifts sometimes. We usually use this time to game. The usual stuff. After the game we decided to take a quick break for a couple of minutes, so we did the usual shit chat. We somehow talked about school and how both of us really never enjoyed their time there as we grow up. We had both been bullied for being nerdish back in our school days. My buddy said that he hopes his daughter, who is 3F, will have a much nicer time later in school/high school compared to him. It got to the point where we talked about all the unimportant stuff we had to learn while we were there. Well, for me, I've always disliked biology classes as I hated the teacher back then. I mean, really hated them. And I said jokingly to my buddy, trying to sound like my old teacher, the only things my 6th grade biology teacher taught us are mitochondria are the power plants of the cell, and you can tell if your mama cheated by your eye color. My buddy laughing at this point, really the eye color? And I said yes, apparently. My buddy, how? Me, take me for example, I have blue eyes and so does my sister. Apparently blue eyes are what call a recessive gene. If one parent has blue eyes and the other has brown, there is only a small chance for your kid to be born with blue eyes. Well, my parents both also have blue eyes of their own. So it would be more than unlikely for me to have brown eyes. My buddy said the more you know, then paused for a second. Then he said, be right back, gotta make Surrey the little one go sleep now. After that he returned roughly a minute later and I could hear him almost sobbing. Me and my GF also both have blue eyes. But my daughter doesn't. It took me some time, but I could calm him down eventually. So after that we both spent some time Googling away, but nope, blue eyes are recessive as I remembered. We found out that if both parents have blue eyes, the ratio is 99% blue eyes and 1% brown or green, so highly unlikely. My buddy quickly disconnected from the call. I tried to text and call him. But he didn't answer until 30 minutes later, saying he will call me soon. I stayed up all night telling my GF to go to bed without me. The longer I waited, I started fearing for the worst. I texted him again and again. He always answered he'll call me in a couple of minutes. At 5 a.m. he finally called me back and said that his GF came home at 2:30 a.m. and asked him what's wrong. He told her Hess not feeling well and will soon get back to bed. He waited until she was asleep to call me back. He told me he will take a paternity test behind her back to have something official to slap in her face. Then he started to cry and I drove to his place to pick him up and we went to a late night drive-through and graped something to eat. I've never seen my best friend like this and I feel like I'm the one responsible for crushing his world. He told that he wanted to propose to her on Valentine's Day. But that's off the table. I dropped him off 2 hours later at his place. He said he will call me tomorrow. Now I'm typing this out laying in my bed next to my GF who slept the whole time unable to sleep. I can't shake the feeling that I destroyed my buddy's life. I love my wife so much more than I love our kids. My wife is without a shadow of a doubt the person I love most in the world, even more than our 3 boys by a long shot. That's not to say I don't love our kids dearly, I do. I love being a father and I love the not so little rugrats, but my feelings for them can't hold a candle to the depth of love I have for my wife. Quite frankly, I don't understand how any happily married person can love their children more than or even as much as their spouse. My wife is so many things to me and our children are just that, our children. Meanwhile, she is not only my partner for life and the mother of my children, she's the love of my life, my best friend, my lover, my confidant, everything to me. She and I have been together 28 years and married for 23 of them. She has made my life so much brighter and she is the only reason I'm still here. Obviously we've had tiffs, but I can't say I've ever felt the lull in our relationship that I had been warned about by family members. For example, my mother once told me you won't love your wife all the time, but I can't fathom why someone would ever want to marry someone they won't love all the time. Our sons are lovely, and I certainly love them most out of everyone else, but I cherish my wife and crave the time when we can just be together. I'm very excited that this summer will be the first that she and I can take a long trip together that's just the two of us again. I don't know if I should feel guilty about the gap between the strength of my feelings for my wife and children, but I don't in the least. I should mention that she, of course, know that I feel this way about her and reciprocates. She does think it's important that our children, at least not explicitly, know that we love each other more, but in a way I feel that they should. I want them to be with people they feel this intensely for. I know that my wife and the relationship I have with her is the best part of my wife, and I want our sons to find people who make them feel that way too and to know that this is important. When people ask why I'm not in our family pictures, I'm going to tell them the truth. A couple of weeks ago, my wife asked if we could have professional family photos taken. I said that money was too tight between our daughter's birthday, a trip to her parents for Thanksgiving, and Christmas. I asked her if we could wait until after Christmas and she said no. She never brought it back up. I didn't think anything of it because I assumed she was planning on taking them herself. The other day, one of my tires blew out, and I went to our emergency fund to cover it. That's when I discovered that she took $300 out of it to pay for photos. $300 effing dollars. I know it sounds pathetic, but when I saw that, I broke down. The last couple of years have been horrible for us. I got laid off and she got sick in the same year. We eventually both found new jobs, but we never fully recovered financially. It took months and months of hard work just to get our emergency fund to that point. Now half of it is gone right before Christmas for effing photos. When I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She just said that she deserves to have nice photos. I begged her to try and get that money back, but she said no. The photo session she booked is next Saturday, but I won't go. She keeps threatening me, saying that people are going to ask why I'm not in them and that I'm going to look bad. I'm sure she's right, but I'm counting on it. When people ask why I'm not there, I'll tell them exactly what happened. I don't care if it's in person or on her Facebook page. I'm going to let everyone know what she did. Since having pictures to show off is more important to her than our family's safety, it seems only right that her family and friends should know that. I feel like I'm married to a stranger. The woman I married would have never betrayed me like that. Update: I contacted the photographer directly. I didn't think it would work, but I decided to try it after so many people suggested it. I told my wife that I changed my mind about the photos and asked to see the photographer's other work. She gave me the website. Then I sent the photographer an email explaining the entire situation. I was shocked by how understanding she was. She refunded us right away. The only catch is that my wife is banned from using her services. I had planned on sitting my wife down to talk. However, the photographer sent her an email before I could. She was pissed. She wouldn't stop yelling at me until I told her I was considering leaving her. She calmed down after that. I told her how angry and disgusted I was that she would act so irresponsibly. I asked her why she would do something like this. She said she deserved nice photos after the last couple of crappy years. I pointed out that we both had hundreds, if not thousands, of family photos saved on our phones. She said they weren't high quality enough, and that we didn't look nice enough in them. I responded back that we could have gone to JCPenney, or just waited and budgeted for them. She said that she didn't want JCPenney style portraits, and that she wanted Christmas pictures. I told her that it doesn't matter, and that financial safety was more important than photos. I said if she didn't agree, it meant that we were incompatible as a couple. She apologized but didn't agree. She still wants to stay together and try to work through our issues. I agreed to try on 2 conditions. 1, we separate our finances, and 2, we do a trial separation. She agreed. We're splitting the bills 60-40, which is proportionate to our incomes, and splitting the emergency fund 50-50. We're also taking turns sleeping on the couch. I know a lot of you wanted me to leave her, but I can't do that. I want to see my daughter every day, not 50% of the time. I owe it to her to at least try and make this marriage work. As angry as I am at my wife, we have gone through hell together. I can't throw that away without trying to make it better. The trip to her parents isn't happening anymore. We evenly split the $100 we saved for gas. My wife can't afford the trip without my half. She's angry that I won't give it up. I told her that when I said separate finances, I meant separate finances. Besides, after paying for the tire and the tow, my half of the emergency fund is depleted. I need every dollar to build it back up again. I also want to stay in town with my parents. I suggested she dip into her half of the emergency fund, but she told me she already used it to book a different photographer for her and my daughter. Last Saturday, I borrowed a couple of sleds from a buddy of mine and took my kids sledding. I want us to build real memories together, not photos posted for likes. I think that 20 years from now, she'll remember that more fondly than the photo shoot her mother has planned. Parents, what did you do to your child that they never forgave you for? I once punished my daughter for failing a class in high school. Now she is 25 and we haven't spoken in 8 years. My wife and I have always disagreed on how to raise our only daughter. She was a good kid, but my wife never believed in punishment, and I felt like we were spoiling her whenever she made mistakes and went completely unpunished. Some examples being, when she would come home past curfew, when she would dress inappropriately, or when she would take a long time to answer her phone or respond to our texts. Like I said, my daughter was always a pretty good kid, but every time she screwed up and I wanted to ground her and take away her privileges, my wife would always convince me not to. This led to never-ending arguments with my wife, and when I look back on our marriage, I'm surprised we even managed to stay together this long, since we used to fight over our parenting styles so much. I love my daughter and I only ever wanted the best for her. When she was 17, I finally punished her in a way that made up for her years of unchecked mistakes, and she never forgave me for it. She has not spoken a word to me since that day 8 years ago. She and my wife are still close, but she has totally destroyed any relationship we once had. It happened during my daughter's junior year of high school. She was usually a straight A student, but I received a call one day informing me she was in trouble for failing her physics class. She had been turning in all her work on time but was still doing poorly on the exams. It came as a shock to me since my daughter had always gotten excellent grades. When she came home that day, I confronted her about her physics grade. To be fair, she was super busy her junior year and was often stressed since she had a loaded schedule with sports, clubs, and AP classes as well. So when she came home that day, I could tell she was in a tense mood, but I knew I needed to address her failing the class before she actually did. As soon as she walked in, I told her to sit down. She looked annoyed at me but took a seat at the table. When I started lecturing her about her physics grade, she told me she was struggling in class but she was still trying her best. I told her that sometimes her best isn't good enough, and she needed to get her SHT together and make sure she passed this class. She got angry with me for my response, and screamed at me to please get off her back. As I said before, we never really punished my daughter harshly while she was growing up, and when she raised her voice at me like that, something inside me snapped and I realized she needed a reality check. My daughter had a part-time job for about a year at that point. She used her paychecks to buy her first car, a crappy little thing from Craigslist, but she loved it. I didn't know much about my daughter's life, but I knew she cared about that car. So that's the route I used to punish her. As soon as she walked upstairs after yelling at me, I went online and got a quote for junking the car. I scheduled to have it picked up and junked that afternoon. And about 2 hours after my daughter's little outburst, she got to watch a tow truck pull her beloved car out of the driveway. I stood in the driveway while the truck hooked up my daughter's car, and after a second my daughter ran outside to the driveway and asked what the hell was going on. I told her the truth. I said that she had been messing up at school and she would be paying the price after evading punishment her entire life. She was just crying and begging the confused tow truck driver to leave her car, but I paid him extra to get it out of there faster. My daughter then called my wife, who was at work, but she had her phone off. After we watched her car get pulled out of the driveway, my daughter turned to me and said FCKU. Those were the last words she ever said to me, 8 years ago. My wife tore me a new one when she got home that day, and ended up undermining me by buying my daughter a new car in the same week. It was ridiculous. Anyways, I ultimately don't regret what I did, even if it cost me my relationship with my daughter. She had to learn about the real world someday, and I know I did the right thing by being the only person in her family to show her that actions had consequences. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter she shouldn't complain about being poor because she was the one that chose to become a teacher? My husband and I, both in our late 50s, have 3 lovely children, James, Maggie, and June. My husband is a lawyer and I have been a paralegal since my last child graduated, so we make a pretty good living for ourselves. James is also a lawyer under the same firm as his dad, and Maggie is now in law school after being a part-time paralegal when her 2 kids were young. Her husband is in engineering and he does quite well. June is an elementary school teacher, and her husband manages a restaurant. They're both extremely hard workers, and I'm proud of June for doing well at a very hard and vastly underpaid job. However, she's always jealous of how much the rest of us make and complains constantly about how hard she has it. She's complained about the fact that we have a cabin in Michigan and she's got a starter home, which we gave her the money for. She complained about her sister having nice clothes, her brother's house by the lake, her husband having loans for his masters, us having nicer cars than her. You name it and she's probably complained about it. She constantly complains, every single time she comes over. She says things like it must be nice to go on vacation, or it must be nice to get new furniture. Last night she started up again, complaining that she couldn't afford to go to the house we have up in Michigan and how it must be nice for us to be able to afford gas and wear such fancy clothes. So I snapped. I told her that her constant complaining was getting old, and reminded her that we gave her the same amount of help with her college and grad school tuition as her siblings, and she knew what she was signing up for when she chose her career. She knew what the salary was, and while I told her I'm very proud, she knew what she was getting into, and this terrible attitude she has makes her family not want to be anywhere around her. She was furious and left, screaming that her siblings are our golden children and that she was just as good as them. I tried to tell her that wasn't true, but she wouldn't let me get a word in. She won't talk to me, but she called her sister, who was quite put off by the whole thing, but was still on my side. My husband, however, told me that I should have just let it go, and my mother is very upset with me, acting like I did something terrible.